Ontarians are a welcoming and compassionate people. When others are suffering, it's in our nature to respond. The world was shook by the tragic story of the Kurdi family. It opened our eyes to the plight of thousands of families fleeing conflict in Syria. The Kurdi story should have been one of hope, salvation, and a new life in Canada. It should have been another fiber in the multicultural fabric that our country is made of. Unfortunately, we have witnessed a tragedy. Those of us who believe in the ideals that have guided our country since its birth as a nation, who believe we have a greater responsibility to humanity, have a job to do. We need to open our hearts and our communities to people and to reclaim our role as a safe haven for people fleeing persecution. Make no mistake, our country is people like the Kurdi family and the thousands of families just like them. When we turn away from them, we're turning away from ourselves. That is why I'm incredibly proud of the work we are doing as individuals, as communities, and as a province. Last week, our government responded to this collective desire to reach out by providing $300,000 in support to the Lifeline Syria. These funds will help the organization to recruit sponsors for refugees. Our government also called on the federal government to bring 5,000 refugees to Canada by the end of this year. Yesterday, the Premier announced that Ontario will provide $10.5 million to help more refugees to settle in Ontario. The goal is to help provide support to settle up to 10,000 refugees by the end of 2016. $8.5 million of this funding will be used over 2.5 years to expedite the resettlement of refugees in Ontario and support them as they build new lives here. The other $2 million will be donated to provide immediate assistance for relief efforts to the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and the UN World Food Programme. Year after year, Ontario accepts more new immigrants and more refugees than any other province in Canada. Many settle in my riding of Ottawa South. Last year, more than 11,000 refugees started a new life in Ontario. And since 2013, we've invested over $26 million to help new immigrants and refugees settle and succeed quickly through the Newcomer Settlement Program. Today, our government is stepping up to support this unprecedented humanitarian crisis to help match the efforts and the desires of our community. We are at our best when we are working together, and I'd like to continue to do that, to bring refugees to safety and a new peaceful life here in Ontario. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Yasser Nakri.
Thank you very much, John, and good afternoon, friends. Thank you very much for coming out on a very short notice. I want to thank Carl Nicholson for hosting us here today, and thank you, Mayor Watson and Deputy Mayor Taylor, for also being present to demonstrate our city's collective will and desire to work together to provide safe havens to many refugees who would hopefully very soon make Ottawa their home. I think the image of young Ellen Kurdi will remain in our hearts and mind for a very, very long time. I'm a father of a 3-year-old. My 3-year-old is in the back, Rafi. I watch news every night for many, many years. It was the first time that I cried watching the news because I saw my son on that beach. And I'm sure many people that night went to bed holding their children a little closer as I did with my son. And it reminded me why I'm a Canadian. That moment really reminded me why I'm a Canadian. A proud Canadian who made Canada its home when my parents left a difficult situation, the country where I was born. It reminded me we're Canadians because we are compassionate people. We are people who believe in giving and looking after each other. We just do not stop at our own borders. We go beyond. And this is not the first humanitarian crisis of this nature that we have witnessed. And we as Canada have a very proud history of reaching out and of helping in time of need and in time of crisis. And this is that time again that we need to reach out and help thousands of selfless people, helpless people right now who need our help. Because we've got the means, we've got the wealth, and we've got the will to do so. It's incredible to see the kind of mobilization that is taking place in communities across the province. In particularly, it's incredible to see the kind of mobilization that is taking place in our own community, Ottawa, because of our very proud history of welcoming people from around the world. I want to thank the mayor for the efforts that he is leading to coordinate our approach in Ottawa to welcome as many families as we can, along with our faith leaders and our community leaders. And the announcement that the Premier made yesterday and the announcement that John spoke about is our province's response to this crisis and our province's proactive step in saying we are going to work with our municipal leaders, our community leaders, and our faith leaders as we get ready to welcome families from Syria into our homes. Everywhere I'm going across the city, and I'm sure all of you have the same experience, people asking the same question, how can I help? Where do I go? What are the steps? And we as a province is saying that we are ready, willing, and able to make that happen. That we will work with our local organizations, with our local community groups, as in Ottawa, that is being led by our mayor, to ensure that when our new friends, our new brothers and sisters start arriving to Ottawa, we're ready, that we've got the settlement funds, that we've got the plans in place to welcome them and settle them and help them become new Canadians. And you and I know that we are going to be better for it. That is going to be the next wave, the next generation of citizens that we will 10 years or 15 years from now, we're going to look back and boast about that, how they are helping to build our city, our province, and our country. Because I think we all will recognize, with the exception of our First Nations, we all have come to this country from somewhere. Be it our great-great-grandparents, our parents, or ourselves personally. And every single one of us in this room, if you're not a First Nation, there's a story to the journey that had been passed along or being narrated firsthand. And that's what makes us so much stronger as a society, because we have that common bond. And this is not the time to turn away and weaken that bond. This is time to again step up yet again to demonstrate that we are the welcoming, compassionate country we are. So as a province, we very much look forward to working with our leaders here in Ottawa. The funding that the Premier announced and John referenced today is going to help our efforts in cities like Ottawa so that we can welcome these Syrian refugees. And we, as you do, urge the federal government to expedite that process so that we can start the resettlement process. We feel strongly that in Ontario, that by the end of 2016, we can welcome and resettle 10,000 Syrian refugees. That is our commitment, and we are putting $8.5 million towards fulfilling that commitment. So we very much look forward to all the efforts and make sure that we've got new brothers and sisters among us as soon as we can.
Here, here.
Our hearts are open, our arms are extended. We're ready to welcome new families in our community. Thank you very much.
Here, here.
So thank you very much, Minister John, RMP, for that. This is a great relief. This is a great relief. Because we've been getting calls from everywhere, and we just have not had the capacity to actually deal with them in the way that they need to be dealt with. And it's not just this agency. In this very room here last Wednesday, we had a meeting of the Coalition in Iowa for Refugees, and it was the same story everywhere. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for putting up a number, 10,000 people. We might push you on that.
Absolutely.
We might push you on that, and thank you for that commitment for $8.5 million, as well as $2 million back in those camps. Thank you so much. It's now my pleasure to introduce Mayor Jim Watson, who I also want to thank for his leadership in taking the initiative to assemble people. He's had a number of meetings already, and our mayor knows that we have a proud tradition of welcoming refugees in our city. He knows the shoes that he's filling. And he also knows that we have a lot of experience to build on. So without further ado, Mayor Watson. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Carl, very much for, first of all, hosting us here today, and your hospitality and your really your career and track record of helping immigrants and new Canadians for many, many decades, and as well, of course, all of the different groups who are here today. A lot of familiar faces, people who have been at the forefront of helping refugees and new Canadians settle in our community. It's a real pleasure to work alongside with you. Alors, merci beaucoup à Carl et toutes les personnes qui sont responsables pour des agences ici à la ville d'Ottawa pour leur appui pour vos efforts dans la communauté et pour les réfugiés. I would like to begin by thanking Minister Naqvi and MPP John Fraser and the Premier for stepping up to the plate, getting involved, putting money on the table, and encouraging us all to get involved, because we all collectively have a responsibility to help those men, women, and children whose images we see nightly on the news. My favorite quote is from the poet Henrik Ibsen, who once wrote, "A community is like a ship, everyone ought to be prepared to take the helm." We collectively have a responsibility to take the helm to help those individuals. And that is why just about a week ago, I met with a number of you, and some who are not here today, to start the process to answer the question, how can individual citizens help? And subsequent to that, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities announced yesterday that they will be forming a working group to get cities from across the country to coordinate their efforts so that we're not duplicating efforts, and that we're adopting best practices from other cities on what they're doing so that we can learn from them and they can learn from us. I also want to thank Deputy Mayor Mark Taylor, who is going to be of great help to me as we go through this process of bringing groups together. And earlier today I announced that we will be holding a public town hall and forum, information forum, on Thursday, October 1st from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Jean Piggott Place at City Hall. We encourage you to get the word out about that particular meeting, because we want this to be a one-stop shop for those individuals who have something that they want to offer to the process, and those individuals who are thirsty for information on how they can help. This is at times you would think a daunting challenge, but as Minister Naqvi so eloquently put it, we have a strong, proud history in this city and this country of helping those less fortunate. But let us not be too naive, because there are elements out there who are not happy or pleased to be asked to help out. When I announced our involvement at the city, we received a number of emails and phone calls from what I'd call a rather ugly side of society. We're saying, help people in Ottawa before you help people from abroad. And unfortunately, there's an element out there that takes that point of view, that narrow, nasty point of view, where they don't believe that we should be helping anyone but help the people in our community first and foremost. And that, unfortunately, is a fact of life, and that's why we have to shout stronger and be stronger in the quest to help those individuals, because obviously what we see over there doesn't come close to the worst day that we might have in our country or within our city. So I thank all of you very much for coming out on short notice on a Sunday. I thank the province of Ontario very much for organizing this and realizing that really there are two challenges we have. One, helping those individuals in refugee camps and on transit to refugee camps, but also providing the majority of the dollars to help with settlement. Because there's a lot of goodwill, but we need more than goodwill, we need financial assistance. And the province stepping up to the plate very much allows us to prepare to welcome those men, women, and children when we break that log jam and get individuals onto our shores and within our borders. Alors, merci beaucoup pour toute votre participation aujourd'hui. I'm very proud of the response and the effort that we have received to date, and I hope as many of you as possible can come on Thursday, October 1st from 5:30 to 7 at City Hall. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
So that's it, folks. Thank you very much for coming, taking time out of your busy Sunday afternoon to come here. We obviously have a lot of work to do. We need to fill that public forum on Jean Pigot Place on October 1st. But I see so many friends in here, you know, from, let's see, Reverend Anthony Bailey from the United Church, Ted Diesel from the Unitarian Church, Don Smith from the Anglican Church. Everybody's here, and we know now what we have to do, and we know we've got strong support from the mayor. We got money now from the province. We've got a number to target, and now what we need to do is organize and coordinate. So I want to thank you very much for coming out today. We have a sign-up sheet.
On behalf of the logistics and organizing side, please, if we get your name and email on this list, we will be very, very happy to let you know what's coming next as soon as we know it. And we will not circulate the list beyond to anybody else. So please, give us your thing and we'll give you a heads up on anything that we're aware of. Thank you.
That we know it's a busy day, don't want to keep you any longer. The only thing that's going to happen from here on is a few photo ops. So thank you so much for coming out and for sharing this good news with us. Thank you.